Oh my God. What is going on, everybody? Zuko back with another Dragonflight video. We are here. We have made it. The range DPS tier list is here. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Get your damn coffees, okay? Get them out. Let's sit down. We're going to talk about this. So, a couple of notes off the beginning. I'm very excited to talk about this. I really have appreciated this journey of talking about all the range DPS specs and playing them all, and like, you guys have been so amazing in the comments in my YouTube videos, in on the Twitch streams with me. We've had so many people coming out being like, "Yo, Zuko, you're doing it wrong. You need to do it this way. Yo, that's not how you play Arcane Mage. That's not how you play Affliction." And I'm like, okay. And I've got to improve on these specs and really get a better understanding of how each of them plays and how different these specs are and what it means to play Affliction Warlock. Like, how are you supposed to do this thing? You know, there was a debate about Malefic Rapture versus Seed of Corruption yesterday. I think some people cleared some stuff. So thank you so much for all the support and the comments and the conversation over the last week or so, 2 weeks. I've really loved it, honestly. That's been one of the best things. There are timestamps on this video. If you want to go to a section that is your favorite spec, by all means go there. I'm going to explain the scoring system really quick. It's very similar to the melee one. I'm going to talk about a couple notes here, and then we're going to dive right into it. I don't want to be here all day, so I want to get this done for you guys. I do have some background footage I'm going to throw in while we're talking about them all. I'm going to go through each of the specs in order. This is not in order anymore. I don't know what happened here. How did Afflock get over there? It's like way over here. Anyway, there was an order to this, and it's all screwed up now. But we'll fix it. Don't worry. We'll fix that later. It's not a problem. It's not a problem. We're going to fix it later. Let me talk about the scoring system first, then we'll get into the video. So if you want to go to your favorite spec once again, you can skip around. Damage, single target AoE, 5 points each, okay? Utility, 5 points. Survivability, 5 points. A total of 20. It's the exact same as the melee spec. Couple notes here. It's really important to understand how realistically each spec can sort of get to their survivability or their utility, right? How can they acquire it? So, for example, like, Boomkin does have access to a kick. They can get it, but it's the feral kick, right, on the left side of the tree there, of the class tree. But it's like so inconvenient to go over there and take that. It's going to kind of ruin the rest of your Druid tree. So there are we are taking all this into consideration. When I talk about Druid's utility score, I'm not necessarily going to include that kick, or I'm not going to give it full points because it's not something that's going to be so easily accessible without like ruining the rest of your tree. And there are so many examples of that in many different trees where it's like, well, they have access to this and they have access to this. And it's like, yeah, but like, are you ever going to be able to take like this totem down here as like an Ele Shaman? Or are you ever going to be able to take, you know, on and on and on? There's going to be all kinds of different examples that I can give. I think somebody just followed me on the stream there. I got to turn that off. So that's that. Now, next one, I'm not a perfect player, and I want to make this really, really clear. I make lots of mistakes, and this is a tier list, guys. It's for fun. It is my opinion on what I genuinely think about these range DPS classes, and I want to make this so that you guys can be more informed when you're going into Dragonflight. But just take it with a grain of salt. This is not the Bible, okay? We're not pumping out serious literature here. It's just you know, make your own decision. Take what I'm saying here into consideration. I'm not a perfect player, okay? You guys have also been wonderful. The rankings are made holistically, okay? So I'm assessing how much each spec contributes to each category overall. And so I'm not comparing like one utility to another utility pound for pound. So for example, Darkness for Demon Hunter cannot be compared to like Stampeding Roar 1-to-1 because they're so useful in different situations. Utility is so unique. It accomplishes something in different situations. So I'm not just saying like, oh, 1 point for Darkness and 1 point for Stamp Roar. Like, they're different. And one thing I am really going to be focusing on, an important metric that I'm using to measure utility, is how much utility does a spec have? How many pieces of utility does a spec have? Mark of the Wild, Remove Corruption, Hibernate, Cyclone, Typhoon. Like, there's a lot. There's a lot in Druid, and so they're getting a higher score on the utility front because they have a lot of utility to choose from. They have a lot of choice, and that's a really big deal. That's the final thing I want to say there. Okay? Let's dive right in. I'm going to move this over here, and yeah, we're going to minimize that. That's fine. Okay, let's get the video going, and then we'll do everything else at the end. I have so many notes going on here, guys. So we are going to start with Boomkin, okay? Boomkin, baby. It's chicken. It's galactic chicken time. Let me just move one more thing here. I will put this up over here so I can scroll through. Okay. Boomkin. Let's talk about him. Okay, so the chicken, I'm going to say overall I was a little bit disappointed with the chicken, and I am going to give it a score of 17 out of 20. I will show you what that means when we get to the tier list at the end. These are just in alphabetical order. That's why we're starting with Boomkin, okay? So it'll be Evoker next. But I'm not doing it based on, like, first to last. It's just, you know, based on alphabetical order. So one thing that Boomkin I find is that it can struggle to get its AoE damage going quickly, to get it out the gates just right away without using Incarn. If you're using Incarn, certainly you can see a pull like this right here. I'm getting tons and tons of damage out very, very quickly. But without Incarn and without a ton of targets, Boomkin's AoE definitely falls down quite a bit. And it has a similar struggle to like Affliction Warlock and sometimes Arcane Mage, where like getting your AoE damage out can take a long time. Look, I'm putting, you know, Moonfires out and Sunfires. It just takes a while. They also feel a little bit like pigeonholed into some of the talents that they have to take. I really feel like you have to take Incarn. You can't take Convoke, which means Convoke is really stranded. It's not that you can't ever do it, but Incarn is just so good because it reduces the astral cost of your spenders, Starfall and Star Surge. So Rattle the Stars is another talent that it feels like you have to take Rattle the Stars. You can see that Rattle the Stars buff in the top right-hand corner up here that I'm trying to maintain. I think I have it up now, 2 stacks of it. That also reduces the cost of your abilities. So those are like so critical, and if you don't get them up and going, it feels like you just get wrecked. Like you just never have enough astral power to be able to press the abilities that you want to press. So that's a frustrating thing for Boomkin, is that they feel a little pigeonholed with talents. You can't take fun talents like Convoke, and you have to really focus on this Rattle the Stars mechanic to make sure you're weaving your spells perfectly to maintain uptime on that buff. So Starfall also got significantly nerfed, like 3 or 4 times in a row. It was insane how many times it got nerfed, and that's just like really frustrating to deal with. That I want Starfall to just be pumping, and it just doesn't. And I don't know what else to say about that. So it feels like all of Boomkin's abilities need to be increased by like 10 to 15%. If they got a 10 to 15% buff like across the board, I feel like they would be in amazing shape. I think really, really good Boomkins will still be able to make this work, but overall, it's a little bit frustrating. So defensively, really quickly for Boomkin, sorry, it feels like Bear form is kind of what they have to rely on to get their defenses going, which isn't really great because you lose damage if you have to go into Bear form. So ultimately, 17 out of 20 for Boomkin. We're going to move on to Evoker here, okay? Evoker's pretty crazy. This is the new spec, of course. They're getting an 18 out of 20, so they're above Boomkin by full mark, which is actually quite a bit on my measuring scale here. I didn't have any in-game footage to show you. I'm sorry about that, but Evoker has powerful, powerful burst windows with Tip the Scales, which is a class-side ability that they get to take, and it basically just says your next empowered ability will go off instantly at full power. So you can like fully channel your first ability. Let me show you right here really quick. You can fully channel your first empowered ability. Here it is, Eternity Surge. And then I'm going to instantly pop Tip the Scales right here, and it's going to go into my second empowered ability, which is perfect. So then they both go off at the exact same time. They do ridiculous amounts of damage. So you can see I'm pumping 174k DPS right now on these 4 targets. So that is an incredibly powerful AoE combo that you can pull off frequently throughout a dungeon. That gives them some incredibly good burst AoE damage, which is super fun to play with. They do have consistent AoE damage too. You can see I'm still maintaining 100k DPS here. You can basically think, you know, if you're playing this perfectly, you can basically do that in a dungeon. I only have 4 targets here, so the more targets I have would be even better. They do have also solid single target damage. And the big reason for that is that they can hover around while casting Disintegrate, which is your main single target spender. So that's also really good. They've got incredible mobility, which helps to enable the rest of their kit. Defensively, they have tons of self-sustain. They have 2 charges of their 30% damage reduction ability, the scales. They have 75% more armor just passively because they're a dragon. And then on top of that, they get a slew of AoE CC options, unique group-wide effects, in utility like Zephyr for your whole team, Cauterizing Flame, which can get rid of like any debuff in the game basically, and then Blessing of the Bronze. They also, of course, have Bloodlust. Very, very good. I did forget to mention for Boomkin that they've got Mark of the Wild as well, which did give them some points on utility. But Evoker, compared to Boomkin, has the damage you're looking for, and it's instant. It doesn't take any ramp-up time. You just get in there and you get it done. So Evoker sitting at 18 out of 20 in a very comfortable position. I think that it's going to be really fun. If you want to pick up this new class, this new spec, by all means, you should jump into it because it's looking quite strong. Okay? So that's Evoker. Let's move on to Hunter. We got BM Hunter. BM Hunter right now, I believe, has a score of, I think it's 17.5 out of 20. I'll have to look at it at the end. But they're doing okay. They're kind of right in the middle of the pack. They're always going to have that consistent AoE damage that you're looking for. It's very strong. It's never going to be like the 300k, 400k blasting everything out of the water, but you will always do damage as a BM Hunter, and that theme has continued on. The talent tree for BM Hunter has basically stayed like the same as you would remember it from Shadowlands. Like all the really important buffs you would take in Shadowlands, you continue to take in Dragonflight. Unfortunately, there were some really cool ideas in the BM tree, like the Dire Beast line, and then on the right-hand side, the big cooldowns, and they just don't seem to be like that impactful compared to the stock standard way that you would want to play a BM Hunter. You just want to blow things up with your pets, get them stomping. You did gain some more AoE with Kill Cleave, which procs from your kill command. It's very, very strong, and their AoE damage is fantastic. Right here, I get above 100k, you can see once again. So unfortunately, some of the newer talents for BM kind of suck, but the old way is tried and true, and it works perfectly, and you're not going to be disappointed with that at all. Defensively, Hunter is still a bit in the gutter. They did get Survival of the Fittest, but that's basically it. They have Exhilaration, Survival of the Fittest. They're very low, defensively speaking, so I would say almost in last place of almost all of the specs across the board. Hunter is in a really rough spot in terms of defenses still, so you need to be very careful with your Exhilaration, very careful how you use Turtle, and the new Survival of the Fittest bonus. Be very careful how you use that as well. But the damage is looking very strong, and the utility is amazing. They have all the traps. Tar Trap, Frost Trap, it's all there. Intimidation, Stun from your pet. Lots of good stuff coming for BM Hunter. What about Marksman Hunter? Let's switch over to there. Marksman Hunter has incredible burst AoE. You can see it right here. We start at 60k, and we just get absolutely launched into 180k, 170k, big AoE burst. So they don't have the consistent damage profile that BM does. You'll see over the course of this fight right here, my damage is going to slowly come down from like 170k all the way down. So the BM Hunter will always have that big consistent edge over you as the Marksman Hunter, but you'll have these ridiculous burst windows that are so much fun to pull off. You fire in a volley, you throw in a double-tapped aim shot, it just explodes everything in there, and it's like the best feeling in the world. So if you want those big explosive AoE moments, Marksman Hunter still has that. And they've also picked up some really cool new utility in Wailing Arrow, which is the Sylvanas like Wailing Arrow thing. It has an AoE silence, which is really, really strong actually. And it actually has some synergy with the Marksman Hunter kit, which in that it helps you it cools down your rapid fire and gives you 2 charges of aim shot if you talent into it. And I thought that was really, really fun iteration there, of the Wailing Arrow. So they've actually picked up some really cool stuff there in terms of the DPS profile. Unfortunately, some of the other parts of their tree, all the kill shot, there's like some kill shot talents, and there's some other talents as well. The wind arrow, sort of those wind arrow ones that just don't seem to synergize super well with what Marksman wants to do. So unfortunately, their damage is fine, but it's kind of the same with BM Hunter. It's the tried and true, the old way that you want to keep playing Marksman Hunter. And defensively, they're the same as BM Hunter. They do gain an extra little bonus because they don't have a pet, right? You play with Lone Wolf, so you get an extra like 20% max HP bonus thing, but it's not that good. So I'll get to the rating at the end, but Marksman Hunter is looking fine on damage. Everything else, the defensive stuff is always a little bit tough. Here's Arcane Mage. I do not have good footage here for Arcane Mage, and I'm very sorry about that. I know how to play Arcane Mage now. In the footage I'm showing you right here, I didn't really know how to play it that well, but this is the one thing with Arcane Mage. The barrier to entry is a little bit higher, and the combo, the Touch of the Magi, Radiant Spark combos that you're going to want to pull off, if you screw them up in any way, shape, or form, your damage goes absolutely right into the toilet. It's really, really rough if you screw up Arcane's combo. So this is the one sort of caveat about Arcane Mage, that if you do the combo correctly, like I'm going to show you right here on the dummies, then it looks really great. And in fact, actually, this combo, I think many of you would say I'm doing this combo wrong as well. But I understand why you're saying that. We're not going to argue that today, but If you do it correctly, the damage is outrageous. This ends up doing like 170k right here on 200k almost on 4 targets. That is an insane amount of damage, and you can burst really hard in single target and really hard in AoE. So Arcane has the potential to do really well. The ceiling on Arcane is really high, but the floor to get into Arcane also starts a little bit higher. It's not like BM Hunter where like anybody can sort of pick up BM Hunter and be okay with it. Arcane Mage requires practice. It requires a lot of that. So it can get there. It's very strong. It just requires you to spend some time on it. The mana issues that we maybe used to have, like we used to have to use Evocation quite a bit to get our mana back, those are solved now. The new cooldown, Arcane Surge, gets you all your mana back. You don't even have to take Evocation if you don't want to, which is so, so cool. I love that iteration. And of course, Mage is very, very, very tanky. Almost as tanky as Warlock. Things like Prismatic Barrier, Ice Block, and Alter Time are ridiculously strong cooldowns that are going to help you quite a bit. Sorry, guys, I'm going a little slow here. But Alter Time especially is like one of the most broken defenses in the game. So good points on defense for them. Good points on utility as well. They have lots of freezes, lots of polymorph, mass polymorph now. Lots of good things for Arcane Mage. But the damage is a little bit dicey unless you know exactly what you're doing and exactly what situation to do it in. You have to practice for it to get really good. Okay, well, let's move on to Fire Mage. Fire Mage, again, my footage here was when I was trying talents like Living Bomb and Meteor. And Meteor might be okay, but Living Bomb, unfortunately, is very bad right now in the current state of the game. I wanted it to be good so bad. I really, really tried, but it just wasn't that good. Flame Strike also feels a little bit strange with the Flame Patch and the Living Bombs that you can get out of the Flame Patch. Even all that stuff is not that great for Fire Mage. You kind of just want to play the single target Pyro build, and then you want to spread it with Fire Blast. Sorry, and that's a very good build. That's not the build I'm showing you right here in the footage, but that is a much better build. I had to try all these other builds out to sort of see if they were good or not. And it turns out that the regular sort of stock standard build for Fire Mage is very strong. You can basically get near 100% uptime on Combustion now because you have Sun King's Blessing in the bottom left side of the tree. You have a solid burst windows when Combustion is up. Very, very easy rotation to learn. Not a difficult rotation really to understand. You just have to manage those procs of getting heated up and when to throw your Pyroblast in there. The damage of the entire kit, I feel like, could come up a little bit. They just recently got nerfed. Ignite got nerfed by 15%, and I feel like that could use a bit of a buff to get fire back into the game. Defensively, they have the addition of Cauterize, in addition to, obviously, Ice Block, and then having the fire barriers all the time. They are really good to go defensively. So, Fire Mage is kind of right in the middle of the pack there. Frost Mage, looking quite good. I believe the score for Frost Mage is 18 out of 20. It's going to be above the other two Mage specs for now. Not by much, but it is above them. The AoE damage, the consistent AoE damage that comes out of Frost Mage is absolutely incredible. It's very, very strong. It feels great to play. You're basically just playing a Frozen Orb Blizzard build, and now you get this addition of Cone of Cold coming in. You get this stacking buff that makes your Cone of Cold really, really strong. Unfortunately, spells like Comet Storm, sort of the new... We had Comet Storm before, but you can talent into Comet Storm. Wasn't super great. Glacial Spike is still a bit of a bad meme, unfortunately. But if you're running into Mythic Plus, the stock standard Blizzard... Cone of Cold now getting addition there, and then your Ice Lance is getting thrown out. Frozen Orb, that's the build you're going to want to run, and it's very solid. It does tons and tons of damage. Very consistent high AoE damage, which is really, really great. The single target damage, certainly not as amazing in Mythic Plus if you're running this AoE variant, but the AoE damage more than enough makes up for it. And then, of course, I think Frost Mage is the strongest, the most defensively gifted of the three mages. You get 2 charges of Ice Block if you want it from Cold Snap. You also get 2 charges of your shield. If you time it correctly, you can have an incredible defensive layout there. 2 charges of Ice Block is crazy. You can get the double immunities in anywhere where you need an immunity. And, of course, you have Alter Time, the best... I think the best defensive in the game. So Frost Mage is looking very strong. It's near the top, I think, of the A tier. I really enjoy Frost Mage a lot. It's got consistent AoE that just feels fun to play, fun to press, very easy to pull off, and again, defensively, it's very strong. So let's move on to Shadow Priest. Oh my god, I love Shadow Priest. If you've been watching this stream over the last week, that's like all I've been playing. I cannot get enough of Shadow Priest, guys. I'm telling you, this is like my favorite range spec by far. I like the changes that they made to Mindseer. I didn't like them initially, but I love them now. It has incredibly strong burst AoE damage. Once you sort of build up your insanity and get to that Mindseer moment where you're just going to pop off, and if you get a proc of a free Mindseer from Mind Devourer, it is a complete game changer. You will absolutely dumpster the pull. You can see, I'm going to pause right now. I have a free proc of Mindseer. So watch this. I'm going to throw Shadow Crash. Here's my free Mindseer. Watch my damage. 103, 105, 106. And then I get my real Mindseer back to back, and you get to channel that kind of stuff. It does crazy amounts of damage. I know the Demolock's doing crazy damage too, but this was like weeks and weeks ago. These numbers might change, but the point is, it feels really fun to play. It feels very reactive. There's buttons that you need to press all the time. I love this spec so much. Just consistent AoE damage from Shadow Crash, applying all your dots with Misery, Mindbender, and Void Eruption working together with that Mindbender slashing everybody in the background from your Mind Blast. It feels really strong to play. You can see the damage is exploding here on this boss fight. So they also have great utility. Obviously, they're giving everybody Powered Fortitude, lots of health, Angelic Feather. You've got Mass Dispel, Mind Games, doing a lot of healing. Power Word Life is a new heal on the class side of the tree that's very powerful. So I think Mind Soothe is another good one to reduce the threat radius to sneak past enemies. Priest has so much self-sustain, it's disgusting. The amount of shields that you can cast, the amount of refilling of your own shield that you can get, honestly, they're so tanky just with the amount of shields they have. And then you obviously still have Dispersion as your big DR there. So I am loving Shadow Priest. If you're on the fence about Shadow Priest at all, please pick it up. I promise you'll be happy with it. It's a lot of fun. Let's move on to Ele Shaman. Ele Shaman still has sort of that tried and true instant Stormkeeper into Earthquake combo that just completely opens up enemies and just blasts everybody. So it has that really huge instant cast burst, and it has even more of it now with Lightning Rod. You can see it's on a couple of the enemies there, or you can take double Stormkeeper. It's up to you. You really do have some good options. That one thing I want to say is that the Elemental Shaman spec tree is just full of options. There's a fire build that I was watching another streamer play a couple days ago, and it was like absolutely pumping. He was getting like 1 minute ascendances. He was casting lava beam into Earthquake, and the Earthquake kept extending his ascendance. It was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. So there's a really solid lightning build, there's a really solid fire build, there's a really solid like frost shock stuff in the middle that you can also use for good cleave if you need it. Ele Shaman has retained its spot as that big AoE burst class that you're going to want. And of course, it has the insane Shaman utility build that we all know and love. Mana Spring Totem. You've got all kinds of totems that you can use. You have a Cheat Death with your Nature's Guardian. You have lots of DR with Ghost Wolf, gives you 20% damage reduction. You have 40% with Astral Shift. They're very strong. Self-healing. It's just, they got the Reincarnation, of course, and they have Bloodlust. They have the whole toolbelt right there. So if you want to play Ele Shaman, it's very powerful in AoE. Its single target is also quite good with Elemental Blast. It does a lot of damage in single target as well. So this kind of has the whole picture, and it's going to be in the A tier there, right up at the top of the A tier for Elemental Shaman. So really loving this spec quite a bit. Let's keep going. We're going to talk about Afflock. We only have got a couple left, guys. 3 spec. We got the Warlocks left. So Affliction Warlock, I was really bad at when I first tried it, and this one night on stream, I had people really help me out. This was the moment right here where I absolutely popped off and I went crazy. 80k, 90k, 100, 145, 150, 170, 190, just went absolutely bonkers with our AoE damage. So Affliction Warlock does have the ability to do this. It has the ability to ramp up, but it always kind of needs to ramp up, right? It needs like 15 to 20 seconds to get its damage going. And once it does, it's absolutely disgusting. But one thing I kept struggling with was refreshing my agonies, making sure that I was keeping those dots rolling. And I think once you sort of master that part of it for Affliction Warlock, it's going to get way better for you. So I was very bad at it. I got a little bit better at it in these dungeons, and I was fortunate enough to capture some footage of me actually pumping some damage. So this thing can do really well. One thing it definitely struggles with, in my opinion, though, in Mythic Plus in particular, is the single target damage. If you're speccing into like Seed of Corruption and Vile Taint, all those big AoE spells that you're going to need, they're good on AoE, but it makes you really suffer on single target. So I'm not really sure how to fix this other than to just say I think their single target needs some help, needs some work, and it's definitely a big problem there. Again, all the damage that you're doing takes a lot of time to ramp up. So in the lower dungeons, in the early part of Dragonflight, you're going to notice that your damage isn't very good. But maybe into the higher Mythic Plus, as the season goes on, I think Affliction Warlock will get better. So just kind of wait for that. Besides that, Warlock defensively and on the utility side, absolutely perfect. They are still the tankiest caster in the game by far. Mage is actually pretty close now, but they are still the tankiest. All the Soul Leech, you get Dark Pact. They still have lots of mobility with your gates, and you can teleport back to your circle. So all the utilities there and the defense is there for them. Really, really strong on that side of things. Just the damage for Affliction needs to be buffed. Let's talk about Destruction Warlock. Holy crap, this pull was so much fun. I really found in Mythic Plus that you needed to take Cataclysm to really make this build work well. I did try a couple different builds without Cataclysm, and it felt pretty bad to me. So when I took Cataclysm and started putting Immolate on everything, it started generating soul shards. Like, my damage just went through the roof. You can see I'm fighting off Hero here for the leaderboard to see who can get the most damage in this AoE pull. The best combo that I love for Warlock right now is Cataclysm into Channel Demon Fire. It is the crazy. You'll just see numbers just going like crazy. It is so cool to watch. I really enjoy it quite a bit. So the rotation for Destro is actually very simple. You still have the amazing 2-target cleave from Havoc that so many other classes don't have. Really only like Arms Warrior and a handful of others, like a couple others maybe, have that kind of ability. So Destro can fit into that niche where if you have a boss that's going to be like a cleave type boss, then that's going to be really good for you. But their AoE is solid. If you put down that Cataclysm into Channel Demon Fire, it's awesome. You still have the Rain of Fire spam that you can do, getting some of the legendaries basically from Shadowlands, and you're still, of course, going to have your major Infernal cooldown with kind of that Wilfrid's as well coming back in. Lots of great damage there, and of course, it is a Warlock. You have all the Soul Leech healing. You have healing from Drain Life if you need it. You've got Dark Pact. You've got Unending Resolve. You have some good CC with Shadow Fury. You have Fear for that single target stuff. You have Banish if you want it. Warlock is really full of all kinds of stuff. Give me 1 second here. And Destro in particular has actually very consistent, strong AoE damage. It's not going to be the highest in the game, but it's going to be there, and it's going to help you get through your keys, I promise you. So, last but not least, let's talk about Demonology Warlock. Oh boy, this thing is a treat to play. Demonology Warlock, here comes an implosion. You just one implosion, you're doing like 60k just right out of the gates. And there you go. You send in your Felguard, and he starts spinning, and suddenly you're doing 170k on a pack that you should have no business doing this much damage on. You saw in when I was doing the Shadow Priest footage there, the Demonology Warlock there was doing like 300k. So I'm not even obviously playing this 100% correctly, but my God, does Demonology feel like a wonderful spec to play right now. It is just absolutely crushing in AoE. It has really big AoE burst. It's basically kind of all about your Felguard. You just throw your Felguard and he does Fell Storm, and you take the buffed version of Fell Storm, which does 400% more damage, and he just crushes everything in his path. It's like a 1-minute cooldown, and he just absolutely demolishes everything. It's crazy. On top of that, you're summoning imps, and then you're sending in implosions, and your damage just stays at that really high margin. So for AoE, they have consistent and burst AoE at the same time. Absolutely outrageous stuff from them. You get extra CC from your Felguard. He's got that throw axe thing that you can stun enemies with. On top of that, all the abilities for Demolock, like Hand of Gul'dan and Summon Dreadstalkers, are both AoE abilities. So like, the bulk of the abilities that you're casting are AoE in nature, which means they also are going to do lots of damage on single targets. You're kind of just like double dipping for free. Like, obviously your Demon Bolts are single target, so is Shadow Bolt, but oh, sorry guys, it's pretty loud. Obviously you're not really casting those. You're waiting to get those instant cast Demon Bolts from your Pasic Demonic Core, and once you get that, you're just launching them out, and then you're getting back to pressing your AoE button. So Demonology is absolutely incredible. I think it has incredibly good AoE damage. It actually has good single target damage, like I said, because Hand of Gul'dan and Summon Dreadstalkers are your abilities that you're casting anyway, and they just actually do lots of damage. Just no matter what, they're going to do tons of damage. So again, being a Warlock, you also have Dark Pact, you have Drain Life, you have Unending Resolve, you have all that stuff. You can give Health Stones to help to your players, Shadow Fury, all the good stuff is there. So Demonology is really huge, and I think it actually is in first place. We're going to go take a look at those right now. So that is all of the specs done and dusted there with our footage in the background. That was not long enough, of course, as it always is. Now, we're going to rank these. Let's get to this. Let me get to the rankings. I've kind of explained why I think each one has value, and I'm just going to give you the raw rankings here right now. So let's just jump into that. So let's start out in alphabetical order once again. We've got Boomkin, and Boomkin is going to slide in near the bottom, unfortunately. It's going to be B tier. So, again, one of the biggest reasons for this is the difficulty in getting your damage ramping up and going. You have to get multiple Moonfires out on multiple enemies, a big Sunfire out, and then you can start casting Starfall. It's going to do extra damage. Then you're trying to trigger your Eclipse passive, which isn't difficult to do, but you got to get that Eclipse going, and then you're sort of getting extra damage from that, and then you have to try and maintain these buffs like Rattle the Stars. It's just can be a frustrating playstyle, and it's going to settle down at 17 for the ranking right here. Okay, so 17 for Boomkin. Lots of sort of reasons why it's down here. They need to buff the damage overall on Boomkin, in my opinion. Just give it a straight 10-15% damage boost, and I think it would actually go right into A tier, and it would be, you know, in the hands of a really good player, it would be an S tier. But for now, it's on B tier, and I think in a lot of ways, it's sort of a difficult class to access sometimes because it's just not pumping as hard as you kind of want it to. Okay, that's that. Let's get to Evoker. Evoker's going to the top of A tier. It's not going S tier for me, and there's a couple reasons for that. But it is incredibly strong. It does have like the big burst AoE damage going on. And it does have consistent AoE damage. It's not as good as you maybe would want it to be. The consistent AoE damage is okay, but it's really dependent sometimes on positioning. Your Pyre can sometimes hit like a random mob away from the group if you're not careful about where you're pressing it. When you press Dragonfire, sometimes it can just fire off a Pyre at a single target enemy that's like nowhere near, so you're losing a bit of damage there. It has some strange sort of interactions that way that makes it a very good spec. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think it's completely S tier. But I think it's a very, very good A tier. It has very good damage. It has some good single target damage and very strong burst AoE damage. The consistent AoE damage comes down a little bit. Has some good survivability. Not the best survivability in the game by any means. It's not the best one, but it's there. It's definitely there. It has, again, 2 of those DRs, right? Obsidian Scales, 30% DR. You get 2 charges of it. But beyond that, its ability to like heal itself is there. It has some good heals and stuff, but not like the best. If you get hit really, really hard and you use both of your like instant heals on yourself, the Blossom and the Verdant Embrace, you're kind of like out of instant cast heals at that point. So it can be a little bit dicey, I think. That's why I'm going to put it in the A slot. Let's keep going. We're going to do, was it Hunter next? Let me look here. It is Hunter. Let's do BM Hunter. So BM Hunter is going to be right here, 17.5. It's above Boomy for sure. It's right here. 17.5 for BM Hunter. I think BM Hunter is good. I don't think BM Hunter is the best. It has, again, that consistent damage profile, but there are other specs like Evoker that can do big burst AoE and have a consistent AoE damage profile at the same time. So I'm not saying BM is bad by any means. Once again, just remember, these are all very, very close in nature, but it's just not quite as good as some of the other specs, which tend to have good, consistent AoE damage and those burst windows as well. Okay? So that's where BM Hunter is going to sit right there. Let's get to Marksman Hunter. Marksman Hunter is going to go down here. So it is below BM Hunter, but above our Boomy right here. That's where Marks is going to go. Again, good solid AoE damage, but over the course of a fight for Marksman Hunter, the damage will start to drop drastically as the fight continues to go on, which means like in higher end Mythic Plus, you might have a really good opening burst window, but the packs are like way tougher, and so you might not be able to sort of sustain that kind of damage that you're hoping for, and that can just lower, you know, your prospects a little bit there. Okay, so also the survivability for both of the Hunter specs is really one of the biggest reasons why they're down here. I think they only have a 3.5 out of 5 for survivability. That's kind of what's killing them for me. Their damage, if we were just doing damage, they would be a little bit higher. But because we're also accounting for survivability, it goes down a little bit. Okay, let's keep going. We're looking at Arcane Mage. Arcane Mage is also 17.5, and it is above, actually it's 17.5. It's up here, sorry. It's going to be above the rest of them here. Again, defensively, Arcane Mage, all the mages are insane. Arcane Mage also, I think if played correctly, will definitely outshine these other classes, even in AoE. You do have to obviously line up your Touch of the Magi and do that correctly, but oh my god, man, when you do that, it does so much burst AoE damage. Radiant Spark adds a lot of AoE damage as well, and then your regular Arcane Explosions into Arcane Barrage is more than enough AoE damage. So really enjoying Arcane Mage. I think it deserves a spot at the top of B there. Let's go on to Fire Mage. Fire Mage is getting 17.5 once again. I'm going to put it actually just below these guys here. I think what was... MM was actually down here. So it's going to be more like that, okay? So Fire Mage, I don't think it's quite as good as BM Hunter. It needs a big damage boost, honestly. It's kind of struggling in that regard. I would actually almost swap these. I'm going to put it down here. It's actually just in a really rough spot. Not going to lie. I think Marksman is actually better than Fire Mage. So I'm going to put it right there. Let's go to Frost Mage. It's going to be A tier. So it's up here, just below Evoker. It's right there. So Frost Mage, again, it's better than Fire Mage and Arcane because it has that consistent damage profile. You're always getting huge amounts of damage. It's always like every AoE pack that I was running into, I was getting like 75 to over 100k DPS. And so like Arcane Mage can do that on some of the packs, but not all of them. And Fire Mage was struggling to even get there. So our Frost Mage is definitely deserving of an A tier. It's sitting at 18 points out of 20. Let's move on. What's the next one? We have Shadow Priest. Shadow Priest is also going to be 18 out of 20. And I'm going to put it above Frost Mage. I'm actually putting it above Frost Mage. I know you're going to think I'm insane, but I have been playing this thing a lot. I have watched a bunch of videos on it, and I have played it in the beta a whole bunch as well. This thing is here to play. Shadow Priest is the real deal. It is slapping right now in Mythic Plus. If you get a couple of procs on Mind Seer, it is just lights out. You're over 100k DPS easily. But it also has a consistent damage profile with Mindbender doing its slashes all the time. Your Shadow Crash applies all your dots for you in one button. You can get 16 dots out, 8 enemies with 2 dots each. Like, just the quality of life that has been improved for Shadow Priest is off the charts. I'm really loving it. I think it deserves a spot there in A. Okay, let's keep going. Elemental Shaman. I'm gonna put it just above Shadow Priest right here. So it is a little bit better than Shadow Priest. It has a little bit more consistent damage profile, but they're like neck and neck. They actually have the exact same score. These are kind of interchangeable, okay? Evoker is at 18.5, not 18. So let's keep going. Affliction Warlock, unfortunately, is going to be basically at the bottom of B. It's at a 17. These are kind of interchangeable, Boomy and Affliction. I think Affliction should be lower than Boomy, though, right now. It just really struggles to get its damage online quickly. You can see I had a couple of amazing moments in that Algathar Academy where I was doing almost 200k DPS, and you can do that too. But those moments are kind of few and far between, and they take a lot of setup, and it has to be done kind of perfectly. And so for that reason, its ability to get its damage out is just really difficult for me. I actually might put it above Boomy just because of its utility and because of its survivability versus a Boomkin is actually stronger. So I'm going to put it right there for now, okay? Last two, we are looking at Destruction Warlock. Destruction Warlock is at 18. It's going to be right here, right below Frost Mage. It's at the end of the A tier, but it's right there, and I think it deserves to be in that place. Good consistent AoE damage, good survivability as a Warlock. Finally, we've got Demolock, and yes, Demolition Warlock is going to go in the S tier. It's actually going to go at the top. I think Demolition Warlock, Demonology Warlock, I'm sorry, Demolition Warlock. Demonology Warlock is completely crazy right now. It is just so incredibly strong. It's, again, as I said in the video, its AoE damage is so strong. Its single target damage is strong. It's a Warlock, so it never dies. It has tons of utility, all kinds of stuff you're going to want, like health stones and teleportation and even just summoning people to your key. It has so many good abilities going on for it. So that's where Demolock's going to rest right there. That is it, guys. That is the tier list, the range DPS tier list. We got Demolock coming out on top. We've got Evoker at the top of A, and then the rest of these guys are really interchangeable. Elemental Shaman, Shadow Priest, Frost Mage, and Destruction Warlock are all very strong A categories. Right below them, you've got Arcane Mage, BM Hunter, MM Hunter. That's kind of like the top tier of B. And then unfortunately in the bottom, I think Fire Mage kind of is it's close there, but it really is falling down quite a bit. And then Affliction and Boomy are at the very bottom. Again, keep it in mind, guys. I'm thinking holistically about all these things. I'm thinking about defensives. I'm thinking about utility. I'm also thinking about how easy is it for you to get your damage out there? How quickly can you get out there and start doing damage to an AoE pack in Mythic Plus? Is it difficult to do? Is it easy to do? Those are all important factors to keep in mind when you're thinking about all of this. Okay, that's the tier list for you right there. This is the Word document that I'm going to have. This is actually my personal notes. That's my personal notes there, but this is the Word document that I'm going to have for you guys. I'm going to put it in my Discord link down below. It has my reasoning as to why they're getting the ratings that they're getting. It has everything here for you guys to look at. So if you want to look at it on a much deeper level, you can. And I'll also put the picture of the tier list in the Discord down below as well. So if you're not in the Discord yet, join the Discord. There's a link down below, and I'll have all these resources for you. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I really want to hear from you all. I love doing these kinds of videos. Remember, it's just a tier list video. It's not the Bible. I'm not the final word on this. It's just my opinion. Let me know your opinions. Let me know what you think about where I put these guys. If you think you would change them a little bit, give me your good reasoning why you might change them if you think they deserve to be in a different spot. So thank you so much again for watching, guys. I love you all. I'll see you in the next one.